Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Chrissy Hodges. I'm an advocate for OCD, in particular Pure OCD, which is the community name for individuals living with intrusive thoughts and mental rituals. It also happens to be the name of my memoir, Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. I am a certified peer support specialist working with people around the world, supporting them as they are working toward recovery with OCD. I also do referral consultations to help connect you with therapists all over the world. And I run 8-week closed groups for you to be able to meet people all around the world who live with OCD to help you feel less alone. Go to chrissyhodges.com to find out more information about the services that I provide. NoCD and OCD is an app. Inside that app, you can connect to other people who live with OCD. There's all kinds of resources, and they also do telehealth in many places doing ERP around the world. Go to treatmyocd.com or nocd.com to find out more information about how they can help you if you are looking for therapy and looking for connection for individuals with OCD. Today, I wanted to talk about compulsions. This is such an important topic. I've been wanting to talk about this for a little while, but I also wanted to tell you this. I have a different stance right now on compulsions than I have throughout the years. And as I've said in many of my videos, especially recently, I, as well as anybody in the field, should always be looking to evolve in our stance on things in regards to treatment, in regards to gold standard, because there's constant research going on and things like that for different disorders, but also to be more trauma informed in our approach on how to support people with different mental disorders. And this is one of them. So in previous videos, if you've met with me before, I, for many, many years, really did subscribe to the don't do any compulsions, and that's how that's how you manage OCD. Don't ever do compulsions. Your goal is not to do compulsions. Well, I have since changed my stance on that, and I really want you to hear me out in what I'm going to say. A lot of this is based on my own lived experience, and a lot of it is based on experience of listening to other people around the world, believing their experience and being able to relate it to my own. First, compulsions arise out of getting triggered with intrusive thoughts and our response to our brain when we believe that there is a threat. So we hear this, and a lot of times explained from a psychoeducation standpoint, we talk about how a normal threat will ignite the central nervous system, and we have a behavioral response. So a good example of this would be if you're in your house and someone were to be breaking in, you would wake up in the middle of the night and you're not going to stop and logically think what's going on. In fact, you're going to be responding to your brain of, what do I do to keep myself safe? This is a behavioral response. It's pretty much pre-programmed in our brains, fight, flight, or freeze. We all know that. When the threat is resolved, so maybe you go downstairs or after a significant amount of time, if you've frozen or if you're hiding flight, then you realize, let's say you realize it was just nothing. It was the wind, or it was a bird or something like that was making a noise. Then we come down from that response, and then we're able to have an emotional response to it. We're able to lock the doors and think logically again. Well, when we have OCD, we're having that same response, but there is a non-threat, right? So our reaction to that is typically going to be logical. Okay, well, why did I have that? What does that mean? And then we start doing compulsions to try to prove or disprove that this thought is not a threat, which then triggers, well, then why, though, am I thinking about this logical? Why can't I outthink this? Well, because you're not communicating with the brain the same way that you would normally communicate with the outside world, which is logic. I know that's a lot, but I just wanted to preface with all of that in regards to what I want to talk about with compulsions. So the compulsions piece, keep the cycle going. So when we're doing compulsions, it's a behavioral response to the non-threat, which then kind of ignites that part of the brain to say, well, if you're doing compulsions, you're behaviorally telling me there is a threat, so I need to keep warning you. This is why when we have an intrusive thought, all of a sudden, if we've never had it before, and let's say we're having the intrusive thoughts about being a pedophile, right? Now, all of a sudden, everywhere we look, there are kids, where you never saw a kid before. There's 10,000 in a 1 mile radius and you know where all of them are, right? Because now it's on your radar and it's the same as like when I wanted to buy a Honda SI, all of a sudden I saw Honda SIs everywhere where I didn't see them before, right? Because now it's on my radar and that's kind of what I'm looking for. So it's the same thing when we're talking about an intrusive thought being on your radar. Now all of a sudden you're looking for it. Now all of a sudden you're warning your brain this is what's going on. And so it's going to warn you, and then you do compulsions and the cycle continues. With all that said, I know that was a lot, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is this. Sometimes you're going to hear a lot of misinformation or information on the internet that, and maybe you've heard this from my videos, or maybe we've met before and I've said this, like, don't do compulsions and that's the way to get out of this or whatever. But compulsions can be very automatic for us. If it isn't like legitimately automatic, meaning there is a pause in between where we do a compulsion where normal people wouldn't do it, it's probably so slim there's no possible way for us to recognize it. So let's take rumination, for example. I've been ruminating since I was a young child. Rumination not only was a way for me to try to validate myself when I didn't feel like that I had a voice in my childhood at times. And so I was continually arguing in my head in order to try to validate myself when I felt like I wasn't being heard. It also became a safety mechanism for me when I got OCD. So rumination then became, well, now I'm going to argue back with my brain because I know what I'm thinking is not real and it's not true, but it feels real and I don't know what to do. So now rumination has become this safety mechanism. That came with me into adulthood, even after effective treatment. So rumination then became kind of a safety blanket for me. I actually don't know what it's like to not ruminate daily. And it wasn't until I really dove into learning about rumination through Michael Greenberg stuff, www.drmichaeljgreenberg.com, when I learned about his strategy toward rumination. Now, it's not for everybody, so if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But when I started to learn that rumination is part of the process, we can have some control over it. And when I also radically accepted that I am a ruminator, that is just who I am. I don't have to feel shame about it. I don't have to apologize for it. I don't have to deal with people who make me feel like shit about it in my life. This is just who I am. But the difference is that I have a choice. And this is what I came here to share with you tonight. For many of us, compulsions are going to be an automatic response. Not only because we have been suffering for OCD for years at times, but because compulsions are just an automatic to our survival system that's being triggered. So when we hear the messaging, if you do compulsions, you suck. If you do compulsions, then you've lost, then you're a failure. Then we're going to be failures at times. Because this is a automatic response, and sometimes it's automatic because it has been habitual for so long. So I'm here to tell you tonight, if you are stuck thinking to yourself, I do compulsions, so I'm a piece of shit. I do compulsions, so I can never get better. I do compulsions, so that means that I'm not like everybody else. Or maybe this is an OCD, or maybe like I'm not as good as everybody else and I don't deserve self-compassion. I don't deserve a good life. Stop. Then you are like me and I am like you. And I do not believe those things. I do believe that I deserve a good life. I do believe that I deserve happiness no matter what I have been through. Because the compulsions are part of my world. Now, here's the difference. I can automatically have compulsions to something and then I can stop and say, I recognize I'm doing a compulsion. Now, this is where you may be going off and deterring in the wrong. Oh my God, I did a compulsion. It's all ruined. The whole day's ruined. I've already ruined everything. I'm not in recovery. I'll never be in recovery because I did a compulsion. Nope, wipe that out of the way. The choice is, look, I did a compulsion. Okay, how do I need to proceed? Am I going to keep doing compulsions? Do I need to put a time limit on the compulsions? Can I stop the compulsion right now? What are my choices? Choices give us power. Choices, as Greenberg says, gives us agency. And in the face of OCD, because it is that part of the brain that is as part of the survival mechanism, we don't believe that we have choices. We believe we have survival. But with OCD, we do. And that's what the compulsions offer us. Once we start to recognize and practice experiencing them, which is what exposure response prevention is. Recreating a trigger in order to see how we are going to respond to it. Response being compulsions. Response being emotions. Response being all of the feelings, all of the triggers, all of the things that happen in response to a trigger if we are controlling it versus it controlling us. So when we talk about doing ERP, and everybody is very scared of it because you read these horror stories online of like this and this and this. And first of all, I'm not saying if you've been through exposure response prevention and it has traumatized you, I completely understand that that is a possibility. So I'm not talking about you. But what I'm talking about is doing ERP in a trauma-informed way, which is just addressing the fear that you are already experiencing without having to take it 10 steps further or without having to make it into the worst possible story you've ever heard. The fear that we experience is enough. But being able to take that in exposure response prevention and be able to experience it and be present and see what is happening and replicating that in order to see that the same thing happens every single time. It may not happen in the same order and it may not be the same thing every time, but in general, we don't know how to experience anxiety and believe that we can be okay, especially anxiety that's manifested in this way from a non-threat. Now, I know you're sitting here going, but mine is a threat. Or, but what if it is a threat and I just don't know it? That's also secondary. That's also a non-threat as well, right? That's the secondary fear of what if I don't have OCD. But to break it down in its simplest terms, ERP is the ability to recreate the non-threat and watch what happens and show ourselves and our brains we're willing to tolerate that anxiety all the way to the end of it. We don't know how to do that because it's scary. We don't know how to do that because we're scared. And that's okay. That's what fear is. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you stupid. That's what fear is designed for. To make you act. To make you stop it. To make you save yourself. But the problem is here is that there's a non-threat. So we're saving ourselves from something that doesn't exist, which is why we're not getting anywhere. I know you're going to say, but it feels real. Well, of course it feels real. If it didn't feel real, you wouldn't be doing all this in the first place. If it was just a passing thought, you wouldn't have all of this invested in this need to know the answer. So I hope that helps. My message to you on this first point is don't beat yourself up for doing compulsions. Don't do it. Okay, I do compulsions. Lots of people do compulsions. The difference between myself 25 years ago and myself now is I do compulsions now and I go, I recognize I'm doing a compulsion. Now what's my choice? Because once I have choices, now I have agency and power. My second point of this video, ooh, hold on. The light just went off. My second point, oh my God. I might just have to do it without the light. My second point of this video is this. And again, this is just revolving around the shit that I'm seeing on social media, and I just get so tired of it. Like all the mixed messages. The second point is this. Y'all, you don't have to over-pathologize yourself and think that everything that you do in every capacity is a compulsion. Okay, maybe at this point in your journey, maybe at this point in my journey, I don't know, I am doing more compulsions. I am thinking that this is a compulsion and that's a compulsion. And all of a sudden, I'm overwhelmed. And how do I stop everything? Do I just sit in a room and not do anything? Oh, wait, that's avoidance too. Right? I mean, It's okay to recognize that things are compulsions, but it's also okay to live your life the way that you need to live it. Right? I mean, I do compulsions when I'm going to fly. I absolutely do compulsions around that. And I just like look at them as almost like little micro compulsions of like, look, I got to get on that flight and I got to do this. Or like when I go out to a new restaurant, because I have the fear of vomiting. When I go out to a brand new restaurant, I get triggered about that. And so there might be little compulsions that I do. And I'm not going to sit here and go, oh my God, you're such a fucking loser and you're not in recovery because you did these little compulsions. Like, stop. I am not going to do that. I'm not going to pathologize every decision that I make. I saw something on social media just recently that was just like, oh, if you decide to take a nap, then that's a compulsion. And it's like, what? I mean, I get that. If you're compulsively sleeping all the time, 24/7, yes, that might be avoidance. But at the end of the day, like, why are we looking at every single part of our everyday world as a compulsion? And now if I do this, then I'm a loser, or I am not doing it right and I'm never going to get better. We need to be very, very careful about not being self-compassionate and not being like, I'm doing the best that I can and living my life with this major mental illness that does present compulsions all the time that are keeping me safe from a non-threat. The goal in recovery isn't just like in a year I'm going to know everything and I'm going to be awesome and everything's going to be perfect. The goal is I'm going to get to know myself a lot better as I work through this stuff, as I work through and I'm working toward recovery, and I'm going to be curious, and I'm going to see things that I never was able to see before, and I'm going to say, wow, I'm going to work on that in the next 6 months. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to work on that tomorrow, and if it's not better, then I'm a loser. It's not that. First of all, that's not life. And second of all, that certainly isn't recovery. Third and last, I also want to say, this is hard stuff. This is a hard disorder to live with. I say this all the time, but I just want you to hear me. Micromanaging this illness and how we're responding to it can become obsessional. Now, I know I just said, like, don't look at everything as compulsive, but at the same time, if you're expending all of your time trying to figure out how not to OCD, that becomes pathological in itself too. You can live your life and say, you know what, today I'm going to do compulsions, and today this is how it's going to be, but I've got shit to do. I got stuff to do. I need to do this, and that's all. I had a day like that a few days ago. I knew I was going to be ruminating, and I was like, but I got to get stuff done. And I got to go here, and I got to do this. We just got buried in a snowstorm. I got to go shovel for 4 hours. I'm not going to let this get in the way. I need to go do this, and then I need to get out of here, and I need to go do this tonight in whatever way I can, all the while recognizing, yeah, there are compulsions going on, and I'm not a failure. I'm doing the best I can. And alongside that, having self-compassion. So you don't have to be positive all the time. You don't have to be like, oh, if I just had a positive outlook, life would be so amazing. This is a tough illness. There's grief involved. I just did a video on this on Instagram. There's lots of things involved. Don't allow the things that you hear sometimes in people's own recovery journeys of like, hey, if you were just more optimistic, maybe your life would be better. Give me a break. Hey, if you just stopped all compulsions, then your life would be better. This is your journey. And however you need to get to a place, or what I like to say, the plateau, where you can just rest for a little while and then look back and go, look how far I've come. Yeah, you may have another mountain to scale over here, but sometimes it's okay to sit and rest. I'm resting right now. I'm resting in my recovery. I'm in a place where I've done a lot of work, and now I'm just kind of sitting and I'm enjoying the view, and I'm really trying to have some gratitude for, wow, I was able to scale this when I never thought I could. I know there's something coming around the corner, and when that happens, I'll get ready for it, and then I'll rest again. And you will too. So I know this probably felt like it was all over the place, but I really wanted to address this. Don't micromanage your compulsions. Okay? If you do compulsions, Don't beat yourself up. Make a plan. Acknowledge them. Have choices. Have agency. This is recovery. This is working toward recovery. It isn't, if you don't do this, then this. I mean, our brains already tell us if you don't do this or else. The last thing we need is for our recovery to tell us that. Be gentle with yourself. Be self-compassionate. This is not your fault. You didn't ask for this. So you know what? We're doing the best that we can right now in managing this, and just keep pushing forward. Today may have been a bad day, but tomorrow might be better, or vice versa. Either way, you're going to get through it. So thank you for being here. I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in peer support or referral consultation, go to chrissyhodges.com. For information about NoCD and their ERP therapy, go to treatmyocd.com or nocd.com. I'll see you next time.